And so I feel like, oh my God, I need to go home and study right now because I know nothing. When in reality, like, I know stuff. Every time I do a video on wash days, I regret it because I feel like I look like a wet dog, but whatever. This video is a Q&A. I posted questions on my Instagram, or like a poll. What would you call it? I don't know. I posted a questionnaire on my story for people to ask questions about my med school experience, and I just want to do a Q&A on like things that I'm commonly asked since being in med school. And I think that it would be cool to reflect on my time in med school and also answer questions that people have for me. So I'm just gonna get right into it. The first question: how have you managed your social life with staying caught up on all your work? So I don't know if you guys remember me saying in like my first video, like part of the reason why I wanted to make a YouTube was to demonstrate that you can have a social life and still be like successful in med school. I think that is true. I do think that is still true. I think that unfortunately it is less true than I originally thought. Like, in the full scope of what a social life is to me, like my social life would be like going out with my friends, going out to eat with my friends, doing things like, you know, spur of the moment. That is not my reality. Like, you can be social, but you have to plan your life to a T. Like, you have to figure out what your week is going to look like and make sure that you're productive during the week in order for you to feel like you have enough time to do stuff on the weekends. And even like having the caveat that when you plan stuff for the week, a lot of times things will not end up going your way. Like, for example, I will say, okay, I'm gonna spend like 40 minutes on the slug, which is a self-learning guide. I'll spend 40 minutes on a self-learning guide, like, and I end up spending an hour, 30, because it was super hard and it took me longer to get through it, or I wasn't fully focused and like my energy's not super high, so it took me longer because I just don't have the same type of stamina that I would have had to get through it like at the beginning of the week or what have you. So I think that not only have I learned that my social life will take a hit, unfortunately, like it will, but also my time management like has to be to a T in order to like be able to hold space for a social life and that's something that I really value. Like, I really need to be around people and I need to feel like I'm having fun. But before med school, I felt like I was able to, like, Monday through Friday, I might have had to get work done, but I could still go out on a weeknight and like be okay. Now, like, that is just not really happening for me, which is fine. Like, I think that is just like adulthood, but it is very different, which I probably will touch on later in the video. So yeah, I think that it's very like different from my peers' experience. The friends that are not in med school are able to go out more, and I think seeing them go out more makes me like envious of their life sometimes. Like, being able to just like we're going out for drinks after work on Tuesday. Like, there's no way I'm going out for drinks on a Tuesday because I know I need to do work in the evening as well. So what I've learned is like you can balance social life, and how I do it is scheduling for sure. Like, just to answer that question in like layman's terms. Is it layman's terms or layman terms? I think it's layman's terms. But I think that yeah, I just need to schedule it, but I definitely go out less than what I would prefer. But what can you do? Okay, next question. What is your favorite class since you've been in med school, and why? Well, first of all, med school doesn't really have like classes. It's kind of, our curriculum is different than most med schools, but our med school is like modules, and like we've done foundational stuff initially, and now we're starting to get into systems. So like right now we're in cardio. So I feel like this early on in the year, I don't really have a favorite class per se, or a favorite block or module. Also, everything is a blur because I feel like we like consume information at such a high rate that like some things are just like out of my head. I'm trying to think of something that I felt like, wow, like that's so interesting. You know what? Okay, we had an anatomy block, and granted I struggled really hard for the actual like written work, but in the actual anatomy lab, I loved it. I enjoyed working with the donors and learning about the body in an actual physical sense rather than like what you see in class where it's a PowerPoint or an example and you're not actually seeing the real body. So I enjoyed that a lot, and I think that it helps you learn like to know what the heart looks like physically rather than what you see, like, oh, this is what the left atrium is, what the right atrium is. Like, to actually see the actual heart was super interesting, because I am enjoying cardio right now, but I think that like everything is in theory. So, and a lot of first years and second years will say that that's the worst part about or like a lot of graduates of med school, people like doctors, I don't know, I'm saying graduates of med school, a lot of doctors will say that like the worst part of med school probably is like first year and second year, because you're seeing things and it's almost like, it's not arbitrary, but it almost feels like, for what? Like, I know I'm going to be using this later, but you're not getting that like instant gratification of, oh, I learned this and here I can apply this. Like, you're only applying it in a test sense. So it feels like, you know, okay, like I just gotta, you know, I just passed this test, but what else? Like, what now do I do with this information? So I think the donors like help me kind of like conceptualize things in a different way and know that I really will be working with actual people. You know what? Scratch that. My favorite class is doctoring. It is not the actual stuff that we're learning. Granted, I love what we're learning, but I love doctoring because we get to work with patients. I love the preceptor aspect, like where we go into the hospital and talk to patients. We've heard like super compelling stories, like have met people who were like at the end of their life, you know, getting like palliative care, having like stage 4 cancer, and then have met people who are like restarting their life by getting bypass surgery and like now can walk again and things like that. So I think seeing actual patients and interacting with patients and knowing that you will be interacting with those patients as a doctor eventually is really rewarding. So I enjoyed that. That's my favorite class. And then doctoring's fun because like my teacher, Dr. Charles, shout out to Dr. Charles, she is very theatrical with her reenactments and it's always funny to me. And so like I feel like I laugh a lot in the class. Like, it's high stakes because like you are learning how to be a doctor, but the grading of it is not the same way as like taking an exam and seeing if you pass or not. So what's your favorite part of med school? Favorite part of med school has definitely been meeting people. I think like I've met so many people during med school, and everybody has like their own stories and stuff, and granted you're not gonna like love everybody in your class, but I think when you're going into a similar career as people, it's easy to relate, and it's a lot of people's reason, like their whys for being doctors are all different, but at the end of the day, like everybody does want to help people in some capacity. Like, you could say you're going to become a doctor for like financial stability, or you like, you know, science, or maybe you want, you know, the lifestyle that a doctor can have. I think at the end of the day, like there is some aspect in everybody in the class who like wants to help people. So I think it's been cool to meet people who feel like their purpose in life is to be a doctor, because that's what I feel like. And so although not everybody in my class holds that true to them, like their purpose in life is to be a doctor, I think the people that I have met that feel that way, I feel like super connected with. And even people who don't feel that way, I have like great friendships with people. So I think that is probably the best part of med school, is meeting people. In another sense, that's also been some of the hardest parts of medicine for me. I think like going from an HBCU to a PWI and switching, and granted I went to a white high school and a white middle school and a white elementary school, so I've been around non-black people for like the majority of my life. But I went to an HBCU for undergrad, Hampton. Okay, shout out Hampton, all my Hamptonians. I enjoyed my experience thoroughly, but it is kind of a culture shock going from having to like handle microaggression or people saying things like, there's your own issues like within HBCUs, but I think it is more tiring to be like in non-Black spaces, of course. Like when you're not within your culture, it's like, but BU is pretty diverse, so I feel like it's been a good experience, you know, so far. And I think everybody has been, you know, I haven't run into like many problems, so I'm lucky in that way. But yeah, so I think my favorite part has been meeting people, but I think the culture shock of getting back into non-Black spaces has been like interesting for me. The next question: what are some triggers that make you feel overwhelmed, anxious, and then how do you calm yourself? I think some triggers for me are when I see other people like talking to someone and being like, hey, how much did you get done today? Which I really only ask like my close friends, and then they tell me they got like everything in the world done, and then I feel bad. Like that triggers me, and that makes me feel overwhelmed and anxious because I think of all the things that I'm gonna have to do later on, or like that I need to like drop everything and do stuff like right in the moment. So that definitely is like a trigger for me, and like makes me overwhelmed. But I think I'm a relatively calm person when it comes to school. Like I feel like there are only so many things in life that I can control, and like granted, like I can control my work ethic and how much I get done and whatever, but I cannot control the fact that if I work super hard, I'm going to be tired. So if somebody is ahead of me and like started before me when they started working, or they work faster than me, like I can push myself past my fatigue, but at a certain point, like I'm not going to consume any information in an actual, like I'm not going to consume information in a way that I can use later on. It will just be like passive consumption. So yeah, I think in that way that calms me and like allows me to feel less anxious by rationalizing the way that I'm feeling and making myself and like holding myself accountable while still giving myself grace. I think has been like a way for me to calm myself down. I used to journal more, but I don't. I'm tired at the end of the day, so like I just stopped journaling, which I told myself I would start up again like last week, and I still haven't. Another thing about journaling is that you have to confront emotions that you don't always feel like it, and confronting emotions is a tiring thing. And so I think like I know that I will have to do that when I journal, so I avoid journaling because I'm tired from the day, and then I don't always want to be like emotionally tired too, so I just like don't do it. But another thing that makes me feel overwhelmed is when I'm in class, because we have like these interactive learning sessions and like learning application sessions and things like that. And when we're in class and like we work in these tables and these groups, you've met my TBL members, and when we're doing team-based learning and I'm behind on the slugs, or I feel like I don't really understand what's going on in the slugs, that makes me feel overwhelmed because we're in class and we're applying the stuff that I should know but don't know. And so I feel like, oh my God, I need to go home and study right now because I know nothing. When in reality, like I know stuff, but sometimes just not enough for the session. So yeah, that definitely makes me feel overwhelmed. This is, I think, going to be the last question. And a lot of the questions that I got were like overlap. Like people asking me like twice, like, oh, what's your like med school life balance? Or like, what's your favorite part? How do you or others that you know deal with imposter syndrome? I think the imposter syndrome question is interesting because I personally never feel like I'm not meant to be here. Like in the traditional sense of imposter syndrome, like being in rooms or being in spaces that you feel like, oh my God, like, am I maybe not supposed to be here because of like, you know, I'm a woman or I'm a Black person, or, you know, I'm an underrepresented group in medicine, or I'm not smart enough. Like there are tons of reasons why you could feel that way. I've always felt like I was smart enough to be here. And I think because a lot of times, like, for example, sometimes if you're in like a pipeline program like myself, where you know that like you're not doing the traditional entry route to med school, it might be like, dang, like, am I supposed to be, or like, am I not supposed to be here because like I would not be here if it wasn't for my program, or this, that, and the third. I believe that pipeline programs are created because I'm meant to be here, and historically there weren't spaces for me or my people to be here. I just like look at my classmates and I'm like, do I feel inferior to them? No. Like, and do they feel like they're really not supposed to be here? I don't know. I don't really hear a lot of them say like, I'm not supposed to be here. If they don't feel that way, then why should I feel that way? And excuse the sirens because I live right by the hospital. That's number one. Like, I'm like, if I'm gonna compare myself to other people and they don't feel that way and I'm in the same room as them, in the same space as them, then I should not feel that way. My program is like a pipeline program, and I know that I would not be at Boston University School of Medicine if it was not for my program. The institution itself was not on my radar as a school ever. I had never even really heard of Boston University, like maybe in passing before, but I'm from Virginia, like no one really talked about Boston University, okay? In that way, like I know that I would not have been at BU had it not been for my program. And I think that pipeline programs are a very vulnerable spot to be in terms of imposter syndrome, because you can think like, well, if it wasn't for this, then I wouldn't be here. But I mean, that's life. If it wasn't for my classmates being like second gen, third gen, future physicians, maybe they wouldn't be here. And that is not to say that they do not deserve to be here. That's just to say that historically, certain people were going to med school and certain people were not, We know that opportunities and access that like being a physician provide you, or being of a certain ethnic group or racial group provide you, were historically not always given to, underrepresented groups in medicine. I never feel like any space I'm in, I do not deserve to be, because I know that I work hard, I know that I'm intelligent, I know that my ancestors and my grandparents and my mom and dad and my family and my community and my village have lifted me up to be here. And if I did not deserve to be here, I feel like that would, or if I believed that I did not deserve to be here, I feel like that would be a slap in the face to the people that have like supported me along the way to get here, or have sacrificed things for me to be here today. And so I don't really feel like I experience imposter syndrome in that sense. I have talked to people in my med school class, or even outside of my med school class at Boston University, like friends and family who are in like certain spaces that they haven't been in before, like grad school, or other like professional schools like law school, dental school, what have you. And I think like maybe other people have experienced that, and I think that imposter syndrome is a valid thing to feel. I also, and it could be because I've been in spaces where there aren't a lot of people that look like me for most of my life. So I think I kind of got out of that early, because if you grow up in spaces where you're one of, very few, and I was always one of very few black girls, one of very few black people in general, I think you have to learn to have that belief in yourself that you are that you will be successful, that you deserve to be here. Like, I think I've always carried that, but I think like in my family and my community has helped me carry that belief. But I think being in spaces where I'm not one of many has helped me also carry that. You just kind of like get used to it. I think sometimes I feel like, man, are they looking at me thinking that I don't belong here? Like if I get a question wrong, or if I say something, like if I ask a question and I feel like, oh, I didn't say it as eloquently as I wanted to, I never feel like, oh man, I don't belong here because I just said it like that. I think, dang, is somebody looking at me thinking, this girl is not the brightest bulb on the Christmas tree? Like, sometimes I get those thoughts and I think, whatever, but that is what I think occurs sometimes when you're in white spaces as a black person. I think you're hyper aware of not only the way that you're carrying yourself, but how people are like perceiving you. If that makes sense. Like, I think that I carry myself well, but I am aware of some of the implicit bias that I'm subjected to. Yeah, so sometimes I think that, like, I think, wow, am I being perceived? Like, I am hyper aware of being perceived. Imposter syndrome is real, and I think that a lot of people do feel it. I just think I cannot allow myself to feel that way. Like, I look at all these physicians and I think, wow, a lot of mediocre white men have become physicians. And if they can do it, I can definitely do it. Granted, are we fighting against the same systems to succeed? Like, absolutely not. But if I got this far, I will continue, you know, to keep going. It's hard to like put it into words, but I feel like I deserve to be here. And I think it's because I also view medicine as like my purpose in life, and like giving quality care to marginalized groups as my purpose in life. So I think that's another thing that contributes to my lack of imposter syndrome. But this is not to say that people do not experience it, because I know a lot of folks that do. But every room I'm in, I feel like I deserve to be in. Yeah. I appreciate everybody for watching. We are at more than 150 subscribers, which I'm so thankful for. And I'm trying to be more consistent with posting on YouTube. I feel like I do a decent job, but I feel like I get overwhelmed, and then I'm like, what am I gonna do the YouTube video? So I still plan on doing weekly videos. It's just I came back from break and kind of like fell out of it for a second and had to get back in my rhythm. But I'm thankful for my subscribers. Like, comment, subscribe, and share to your friends as well. I will check in with y'all next week. It'll probably be another vlog, and I'm hoping to post it on Friday or Saturday. So yeah, but anyways, I'll talk to you guys later.